Now we come to the third of my video series on Halloween Horror Nights 11. Horror Night History for the year 2001's event, I.C.U. Alright, we talked about the whole thing and how leading up to it, 9/11, and how Eddie was removed from the event and replaced with Jack once again. So Jack became the icon for the event for 2 years running. Now, the houses. There were, once again, 5 houses in the same locations, more or less, as they had been for the past couple of years before this. 2 soundstage houses, one in the Nazermans area, and 2 in the earthquake queue. The first house of the year was The Mummy Returns. The chaos continues. Or is it the curse continues? I'm trying to remember what it was. It was something continues, something like that. Anyway, it was in the earthquake queue, one of the 2 houses in the earthquake queue area. And essentially it was very similar to the house that they had back in the year 1999 of The Mummy, and it had some of the same sets and costumes. There are a couple of new things, though, because this was based on the sequel, The Mummy Returns, which had been in cinemas, of course, shortly before the event, and so we had the direct tie-in to that. In addition to the Imhotep character, therefore, we had a new character in the house, featured as part of it, none other than the Scorpion King. So it's kind of scary to think that at some point in Horror Nights history, there were people representing the Rock, Dwayne Johnson, in a haunted house. And I don't remember if you could actually smell what he was cooking, but he was there. Scorpion King, tail, yes, pointy sting. Anyway, Scorpion Studios. There are a couple of people out there who just laughed because of an inside joke, from way back when. Never mind. It was on the vault. It was silly. It was a Photoshop thing. Scorpion Studios, if you recall that. All right. Right. Next house is called Superstitions. It was in the Nazermans area, and the idea was to utilize various superstitions that people have and make a haunted house out of it. And I'm trying to recall. I went through all these houses at least a couple times. There are a lot of things that I don't remember so well about the year 2001. I don't know why. I can remember more clearly 2000 and even 99 and 98 better than I can recall 2001 in a lot of areas, even though I went 3 or 4 times at least, and it was more recent, and I did all the houses, shows, and zones and stuff, well, mostly. And I think, I don't know why. Maybe it was the trauma of 9/11. I don't know. I have no idea. Or maybe some things don't stick in your mind as well as others. But what I remember most about the Superstitions house, and I know that there are all sorts of rooms featuring different superstitions of different kinds, and done in a horrific manner with blood and guts and all of that. But the one that sticks in my mind was the black cat room. Black cats are unlucky. So the stuff that was unlucky, all the sorts of unlucky things, whether it was going under a ladder, I guess, or spilling salt. I don't know if those are in there. But the black cat is the one that sticks in my mind, because the room was all filled with these cats, and they were hanging, and they were meowing, and they were, it was better than the black cat room in the Hallow years later. And that's the one I can remember, the black cat room. With like dead black cats hanging, and you had to go through them, and their fur was sticky with gunk and stuff. It was like, I remember that. And you hear meow, meow, and meowing and stuff, and I think there was a creepy little girl in there or something with her petting her cat. And inappropriate jokes, whatever you want. It was. I remember that one. Of course, the highlight house for me that year. For a lot of people, it was a different house, but for me, the house that I really dug and went back in as many times as I could a couple of nights ago, it was Scary Tales. in one of the sound stages. This was the house that was originally going to be called Terrorland, and it was supposed to be an amusement park, and it was another little dig at a certain competitor down the street. You know, Disneyland. No, don't say it. Don't say the D word. Okay. But Terrorland was a theme park with Pinocchio and Snow White and Peter Pan and all these characters, except something went wrong and the animatronics started to kill, and you have the characters turning it upside down into a twisted, evil, fractured fairy tale from hell. And that was the original idea for the house. Well, Terrorland, not a good name, especially since one of the things that worried an awful lot of people behind the scenes, and they didn't try to talk about it too much out in the open because they didn't want to give, you know, any Muslim terrorists, Bin Laden, Al-Qaeda ideas, but behind the scenes of any place like Disney or Universal, and God knows we had this worry at Disney all the time, was, you know, we're the target, aren't we, for this part of the world? You know, the number one target for where we live in Florida would be Disney. That's where they're going to strike, because they'll get all those guests and people, and it would be I mean, you know, that was the fear that we had, that they were going to strike there. And so to call Terrorland and make it, oh dear, that would be lawsuit city. It wouldn't just be inappropriate, but Disney would go after them if they did it at this time in history. It was one of the things, I'm sure, in their minds. So it becomes Scary Tales, which is an obvious pun, and I'm sure it's been done in haunted houses before this. I mean, we even have, you know, Not Scary Farm in California. Well, obviously it rhymes with scary, so Scary Tales, and it was essentially the same house, but they tried to tone down the idea that it was, you know, a theme park somewhere. So you had rooms with these sort of characters like Snow White, Pinocchio, and what have you, in these gory scenes. I remember the werewolf in Little Red Riding Hood, for example, and it was. Of course, there have been 3 Scary Tale houses, and the first one, the most recent one, is very clear in my mind. The first 2, which were 1 year after another, 2001, 2002. It's sometimes difficult to remember which was which. I think the 3 Little Pigs and the Headless Horseman were in the next one, which was the year after that. And this one, there were other characters. But that was the general idea. What was also rather fascinating, when we talk about tugging the mouse's ears a little bit, and this was a ballsy move. I don't know if they have the rights to it or not, but the music that was played in Scary Tales was music from a Disney film. Not Snow White, The Wish Upon a Star, or something like that. God, no, that would be way too, you know, that would be like tattooing "Sue My Ass" on your chest. No, they picked a more obscure song. They picked a song from Spy Kids, the Robert Rodriguez film that was released by Disney, and Alan Cumming, who plays the villain in that movie, who's like a kiddie show host character. What was his name? Frink or something? I forget. That's the Simpsons mad scientist. It's Jerry Lewis. But it's something similar to that. Some kind of a flippy, flardy, I don't know, some kind of funny sound name. And basically, he has a song about, you know, how the world is a scary place and they're going to eat you and stuff. Basically, for little children, nice, reassuring song, and that was played there, and it fit in perfectly with the house. That was very evocative. Okay, now the next house. One of those I remember very little about, probably because it was a fairly mediocre house. Sorry, don't mean to offend anyone. It was called Pitch Black. A couple of years later, there was another house called Cold Blind Terror. This was almost the same house concept. I don't know why they kept doing this. The idea was we're going to have a house that's really in the dark and you can't see. Well, you know, this works for any house if you go in when, say in September, especially before the time changes, and you go in and right after opening, go into any house, you can get the same effect, because you'll be so blind you won't be able to. You're walking into boo holes, you'll be, accidentally grabbing a character's face. Oh, sorry, dude, which happened to me in Dracula a couple years ago, because I went in there right after opening and I couldn't see anything, and I'm, finding myself walking in the wrong direction, and I don't know where the, and the guy in black with the flashlight doesn't do me any good because I can't see them either. I'm just like, I got a white stick and a dog on a leash here. Help me, because that's basically where you are. So if you really want to do that, just, hey, or just don't put any lights in the house whatsoever. But pitch black didn't work quite so well as they would like it to have. And the idea that it's freezing cold that they had, and well, that was a different house, but still, wasn't that pitch black. That I can tell you right away. And it seems to me it was just another one of the disorientarium type of houses they've had so many times over the years. Run, though, was going to be the house of the year. And for many people, it still was. It was a pretty awesome house. It was set up as a fun house from hell sort of thing. Not a fun house like Jack's Fun House, because this is filled with people trying to kill you. And basically, there were a lot of very in-your-face characters with chainsaws and whatever to chase you through the house. A lot of that was toned down, so the house was not quite as awesome as it should have been. And if you go back and read the actual treatment for the house that you can find at that website I told you about before, that Horror Nights Memories place, you'll see that the house was originally going to be extremely brutal, where you would go in and like the gate would come down behind you and you're trapped and you're told to run, and you're trying to go through the house as quickly as you can, and there are people coming after you, and chainsaws and horrors of all kinds, vicious dogs, what have you. And they did have some of this intensity in the house itself, not as much as if you read that treatment when you go, holy crap. Wasn't the extreme house concept, that came later. It was never actually pulled off. Some people get that confused. But the idea was you were being pursued intently through the house and you had to keep going. A lot of people liked this house a lot and would go back online as soon as they got out again. For me, it was good, but I didn't have that same experience that the others did. It was not my favorite house. I went back to Scary Tales. I'm not sure why. It just taste, I guess. Also, I think because I was pissed off that Eddie wasn't in the house. I was expecting this character I had seen, and now I was aware that something had happened. And I work for Disney, and there were a couple of people that would show up at Adventurers Club where I worked, who were from Universal. And when this happened, I would say, what's going on with this Jack thing? Isn't that supposed to be somebody else? And they said, yeah, it was supposed to be Eddie, and they took him away because of 9/11. So I was aware of what happened, because I was told right away by my inside sources that this had gone on there. And I was kind of pissed off, because I wanted the Eddie that was supposed to be there, and at least put him in the house, that he was supposed to be in. It was like, something's missing here. There's supposed to be someone else in here, and he's not in here. And that's what kind of turned me off a little bit about Ron, because I was aware already that there was something missing. And I think I was pissed off by that. And then, whereas the Scary Tales house, I think, was captured so brilliantly. But of course, I had no idea they were going to take that same idea and lift it to new heights a few years later. All right. So, the scare zones, once again, they managed to have 3 scare zones during a year when they had a parade. Again, they put them in off places. They didn't have as many as did in 2000, though. They had the Midway of the Bazaar, once again, no Dr. Morose this time, but just the good old Midway of the Bazaar, once again, held in Amity. I think it was the last time they ever did this scare zone. They brought back a sort of version of it with parade floats in 2004. The Unknown was in Central Park, well named, because I'm damned if I can remember exactly what it was, but I know there were gargoyles there, and I'm not quite sure what. I think it was a catch-all of a lot of different stuff. Maybe CDT was involved somewhere. There had to be somewhere. Nightmare Alley is a mystery to me. It's possible I didn't actually go in this zone, which is upsetting to me. Perhaps I didn't realize it was there. I'll get back to that in the next video.